The rain hadn't stopped for days, a ceaseless tattoo against the roof of my new home in Thornwood, a sleepy speck of a town I'd fled to after the city chewed me up and spat me out. The house, a Victorian relic with sagging eaves and peeling paint, had been a desperate purchase, snapped up online after a realtor's glossy photos promised character and potential. I'd needed an escape from the wreckage of my old life, a divorce that left me hollow, a job lost to corporate downsizing, friends who drifted away like smoke. The place was falling apart, sure, but it was mine, a blank slate to rebuild on, or so I told myself as I hauled boxes through the warped front door. That first week, I threw myself into busy work, unpacking, hammering loose nails, pretending I could outrun the silence that settled over me each night. The house groaned under the storm's weight, wind whistling through cracked windows, floorboards creaking with every step. I'd sit by the fireplace with a glass of cheap red, staring into the dark, trying to convince myself this wasn't a mistake. It was the fifth night when the draft hit me, not the usual chill of poor insulation, but a sharp, deliberate gust, like a finger brushing my neck. I traced it to the living room, where a bookshelf slumped against the wall, its shelves bowing under dusty paperbacks and chipped porcelain figurines left by the previous owner. I tugged at the shelf, expecting it to resist, but it slid aside with an eerie grace, revealing a seam in the faded wallpaper, a faint outline of a door, invisible unless you knew it was there. My pulse quickened, a mix of dread and thrill. I'd watched enough horror movies to know this was a terrible idea, but the alternative, another night alone with my thoughts, was unbearable. I pressed against the seam, and with a reluctant groan, the wall swung inward on hidden hinges, unveiling a narrow staircase spiraling into shadow. The air wafting up smelled of damp earth and something metallic, like old blood or tarnished coins. I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen, its beam flickering but functional, and stood at the threshold. A sane person would have called someone, my sister in Portland, who'd begged me not to move here, a contractor, hell, even the chatty cashier at Thornwood's lone grocery store, but I'd come here to prove I didn't need anyone. So I stepped down, the wooden stairs protesting under my weight, each creak a warning I ignored. The air thickened as I descended, the chill seeping into my bones until I reached the bottom. A small room, no bigger than a closet, but furnished like a forgotten memory. A rickety chair sat beside a table draped in a moth-eaten cloth, its edges frayed like spider webs. On it rested a lantern, its glass smudged but glowing faintly, as if lit moments before I arrived, and a leather-bound journal, its cover cracked and yellowed. The room hummed with a stillness that pressed against my ears, a weight I couldn't shake. I reached for the journal, my fingers trembling as they brushed its surface, half expecting it to crumble. The first page bore a date, October 12th, 1893, and a name in elegant, shaky script, Eleanor Grayson. Below it, the words, "They mustn't find it. Not yet." I sank into the chair, the lantern's light casting jittery shadows across the walls, and began to read. Eleanor wrote of a family secret, a fortune hidden somewhere in the house after her husband, Thomas, a merchant with a taste for extravagance, died under murky circumstances. She hinted at betrayal, a business partner's greed, an affair that soured, a death that wasn't accidental. Her words were cryptic, skirting the edges of truth as if she feared the wrong eyes might find them. The final entry, dated October 19th, was a frantic scrawl. "The walls are listening. I hear them at night." A shiver clawed up my spine. I snapped the journal shut, my mind racing. Was this a prank? A relic from some dramatic tenant? But the lantern's glow felt too real, its warmth licking at my skin like a living thing. I stood to leave, and that's when I heard it. A soft thud, like bare feet on wood, echoing in the empty room. My flashlight swept the corners, finding only dust and cobwebs, but the sound came again, closer. Panic surged, and I bolted up the stairs, slamming the hidden door shut and shoving the bookshelf back with a force that rattled the windows. My heart hammered as I leaned against it, half expecting something to push back from the other side. Sleep was impossible that night. Every creak of the house became footsteps, every gust of wind a whisper curling around my ears. I lay in bed, eyes locked on the ceiling, replaying the thud, the journal, the lantern's impossible glow. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was exhaustion, stress from the move, loneliness twisting my senses, until I shuffled into the living room. The bookshelf was ajar, just an inch, as if nudged by unseen hands while I slept. My stomach dropped. I could have sworn I'd wedged it tight. I stood there staring at the gap, debating whether to ignore it or face whatever lay below. Curiosity, or stupidity, won. I slid the shelf aside, the hidden door creaking open like an invitation, and descended again. The lantern still glowed, its light steady and warm, defying logic. The journal lay open to a page I hadn't reached. It's in the heart of the house. Seek the rose. The words sank into me, sharp and insistent, like a command I couldn't refuse. That line ignited something reckless in me, a need to know, to unravel Eleanor's mystery, to prove I wasn't losing my grip. I tore through the house, tapping walls for hollow spots, prying up floorboards with a crowbar, hunting for anything tied to a rose, a carving, a painting, a clue buried in the decay. Dust coated my hands, splinters bit my skin, but I found nothing. Days bled into nights, my search consuming me. The noises grew, footsteps pacing the hidden room after dark, a faint hum like a lullaby drifting through the walls. I stopped sleeping downstairs, dragging my mattress to the attic bedroom, hoping distance would dull the sounds, but they followed, seeping into my dreams like ink into water. By the end of the week, I was a wreck, unshaven, living on coffee and adrenaline, my hands raw from digging through the house's bones. The noises were relentless now, a chorus of thuds and whispers that kept me on edge. I couldn't tell if they were real or if I was cracking under the weight of isolation. Desperate for answers, I drove to Thornwood's library, a squat brick building that smelled of mildew and forgotten stories. The librarian, a wiry woman with silver hair, eyed me warily as I pored over brittle records and yellowed newspapers. The Grayson family was real, their history etched in faded ink. Thomas Grayson had been a merchant, wealthy but reckless, found dead in the parlor in 1893, poison suspected, though never proven. Eleanor vanished weeks later, leaving the house abandoned until it passed through a string of owners over the decades. Local lore spun wild tales, a curse tied to the Grayson wealth, a treasure hidden in the walls, a ghost who never left. I'd laughed off those stories when I moved in, but now they clawed at me. A grainy photo of Eleanor sealed it. Her eyes, sharp and haunted, mirrored the unease I'd felt since that first night. Back home, I fixated on the parlor's fireplace. Its mantel bore a faint carving of a rose, half hidden under layers of chipped paint. I grabbed a hammer, reason abandoning me, and attacked the bricks, dust billowing as I chipped away. Hours later, my arms aching, I uncovered a hollow space. A metal box, rusted but intact, nestled inside. My breath caught as I pried it open with trembling hands. Inside lay a locket engraved with E.G., a stack of gold coins stamped with dates from the 1880s, and a folded letter yellowed by time. The letter was from Eleanor to her daughter Abigail, written in a hurried hand. She confessed she'd hidden the family's wealth to protect it from Thomas's business partner, Nathaniel Harrow, a man she suspected of murder. She wrote of her fear, her guilt over Thomas's death, and a plan to flee with Abigail. But the letter cut off mid-sentence, ink smudged as if ripped from her grasp. I clutched the locket, its weight grounding me as the room spun. This was real. I'd found it. A piece of history, a fortune, a story that could change everything. That night, the house fell silent. No footsteps, no hum, just an oppressive stillness that pressed against my chest. I checked the hidden room. The lantern had gone dark, its fuel impossibly spent. Relief washed over me, tinged with triumph. I locked the box in a drawer upstairs, promising myself I'd sell the coins, pay off debts, maybe even leave Thornwood behind. For the first time in weeks, I slept, dreamless, heavy, certain I'd turned a corner. But morning shattered that hope. The drawer was empty, the box, the locket, the letter, all gone. My stomach lurched as I raced to the living room. The bookshelf stood wide open, the hidden door ajar. On the table below, the journal lay open to a new page, one I hadn't seen, written in fresh, wet ink. You found it. Now they know. The words stared up at me, black and glistening, as if written moments before I arrived. My knees buckled, and I gripped the table to steady myself, the lantern's cold glass brushing my knuckles. The silence was gone, replaced by a low hum, faint but growing, vibrating through the floorboards. I slammed the journal shut, my mind scrambling for an explanation. A prank? A squatter? But the ink was too fresh, the house too empty. I'd locked every door, checked every window. No one could have gotten in or out without me hearing. I tore through the house again, searching for the box, my breath ragged. Drawers yanked open, cushions flung aside, closets emptied. Nothing. The coins, the locket, the letter, vanished as if they'd never existed. The hum grew louder, a pulse I felt in my teeth, and then the footsteps returned, slow and deliberate, echoing from the hidden room. I froze, listening as they climbed the stairs, thud, 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 stopping just behind the bookshelf. Silence stretched, unbearable, until a soft scrape sounded like nails on wood. I didn't wait to see what came next. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and bolted for the front door, the storm outside a lesser threat than whatever was inside. Rain lashed my face as I stumbled to my car, fumbling with the ignition until the engine roared to life. I drove to the edge of town, parking under a flickering streetlight, my hands shaking as I dialed my sister, Claire. Her voice crackled through the line, groggy but sharp. "Lila? It's 3 a.m. What's wrong?" Something's in the house, I blurted, my voice trembling. I found a room, a hidden room, and now it's after me. A pause. Slow down. What room? What's after you? I tried to explain, the draft, the door, Eleanor's journal, the treasure, the footsteps, but it tumbled out in a frantic mess. Claire cut me off. You're not making sense. Have you slept? Are you okay? I'm not crazy, I snapped, though doubt gnawed at me. I found gold, Claire, real gold, and now it's gone, and something's watching me. She sighed, her tone softening. Look, stay where you are. I'll drive down tomorrow. Just don't go back tonight, okay? I nodded, forgetting she couldn't see me, and hung up. The rain drummed on the windshield, blurring the world outside. I wanted to believe her, that I was tired, imagining things, but the journal's words burned in my mind. Now they know. Who were they? Eleanor? Harrow? Something else? I sat there, soaked and shivering, until dawn crept over the horizon, painting the town in gray light. I couldn't stay away forever. Claire wouldn't arrive for hours, and I needed answers, proof I wasn't unraveling. I drove back, the house looming against the stormy sky, its windows dark like unblinking eyes. Inside, the air felt heavier, charged with something I couldn't name. The bookshelf was still open, the hidden door gaping. I descended, flashlight trembling in my grip. The journal was gone, replaced by the metal box, sitting on the table as if it had never left. My heart leapt. I opened it, expecting the coins and locket, but it was empty except for a single sheet of paper. In Eleanor's handwriting it read, "You can't keep it. They won't let you." The hum surged, deafening now, and the footsteps erupted, dozens of them, pounding from every direction. I dropped the box, the clang swallowed by the noise, and ran upstairs, slamming the door shut. The bookshelf wouldn't budge, stuck open as if held by invisible hands. That's when I saw her, a shadow in the doorway, tall and feminine, her outline flickering like a bad signal. She didn't move, didn't speak, just watched with eyes I couldn't see but felt boring into me. I stumbled back, tripping over a rug, my scream caught in my throat. The hum became a wail, the footsteps a stampede, and the shadow stepped forward, her form sharpening. Pale skin, dark hair, Eleanor's eyes from the photo, but hollow, endless. I don't remember running, only the cold rain on my face as I collapsed outside, the house a silhouette against the storm. Claire found me there hours later, babbling about shadows and gold. She drove me to her place, promising I'd never go back, but I hear the hum sometimes, faint in the distance. The house is for sale now, cheap with character, but I wonder who they are and if they're waiting for the next fool to find that room. I haven't slept right since, and I don't think I ever will.